We've all heard of the philosophy of psychology. But what about the psychology of philosophy? Philosophers don't like that. There's an assertion that's being thrown around that to arrive at the truth, we must separate psychology and philosophy. And while this is true, it is only true for spiritual warriors of inward exploration. For the average man, however, one who thinks, assigns meaning, establishes values, belief systems, this is an utter impossibility. But before anything else, it should be realized that what is arrived at, whether for the spiritual warrior or for the average man, is not truth. There is no such thing as truth absolutely. At best, all we have are temporary aspects of functionality. Temporary aspects of functionality that are only applicable to a self that is not the true self anyway. For the average man, the temporary aspects of functionality are relegated to the relative subjective distinctions of a psychology. For the spiritual warrior who seeks direct knowing detached from the psychology, the temporary aspects of functionality are relegated to pure awareness. See the difference there? So for an average man that operates from a thinking mind, there is no separation from the psychology and the philosophy. Just as a criminal profiler can look at a crime scene and establish a personality, MO, and a general dossier of the offender, much the same can be done by examining various philosophies of average men. Of course, average men don't like this because they like to think of themselves as objective. But unfortunately, this is never the case. Thinking, believing, valuing, judging, discriminating, and distinguishing have everything to do with psychology and nothing to do with objectivity. For how can one ever be objective when they are subject to the bias of their specific configured psychology? Average men like to use this as a sticking point, imploring people to argue their philosophy and pay no mind to their psychology. And it's no surprise. This is very much the Western way. The same reasoning that has medical professionals addressing symptoms and ignoring the root causes. It's pointless, and it doesn't address the underlying foundation. Every single philosophy of average man, no matter what kind of specific ideology or theology, need not be argued against. What benefit is there in arguing against biased, discriminating, prejudiced, subjective, relative, opinionated judgments? They are arguments with no end, and have no dealings in outside perspective. It's an endless, complex maze, and after a while you begin to realize there is no such thing as a winning argument, and that just arguing is the real core design of the discoursive argumentation. It's yet another anti-progression trap. For when everything is locked up in arguments, nothing ever gets done. When you follow awareness, detached from the body, mind, and psychology, you see there is nothing to argue. Defined, relegated details that all melt away are not worth arguing. Dream content is not lasting or substantial enough to try to attempt some firm position on solid grounds. You are experiencing a now from a specific perspective, and very soon this will no longer be the case. Doesn't matter what you think, believe, or postulate, it all melts away. None of it is true anyway. None of it is lasting, unchanging, absolute, objective, or real. So naturally, when you are confronted by a philosophy that is the result of a discriminating, subjective, relative psychology, you automatically recognize the psychology and see that it's the only thing to address. Never mind the subjective philosophy. It's just buncombe. A bunch of useless details that sustain the real underlying motivation. Bickering and quibbling just for the sake of it.